Buying a second-hand Old English sports car like an MG Midget can be frankly terrifying. Little old Andy is here to give you a helping hand on the key areas of things to look for when buying one of these chinchillas. So let's not beat around my bush. Let's get cracking. Whoa, 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 whoa! Don't buy the first midget that you see like I did. What you want is a bundle of things that you can take with you so you can look at the car properly, starting with slobbery gear so you can get all under the car and in all the dirty bits. Next, I would advise that you invest in a couple of books to help you through. Like these two. Lovely Wren. You might also want to bring a magnet and a cloth to carefully run across parts of the bodywork, making sure that there's no filler or damaged parts. Next thing you'll want is a torch, so you can get in all of those nooks and crannies. And lastly, take a friend to play with. I mean, play with the car. You know, look for exhaust You know what I mean. Next, a big question. Which model do you want? There are loads to choose from. Do you want the 948cc, the 1098cc, the 1275, the round wheel arch, the 1500 rubber bumper? There are so many to choose from. Generally, the earlier cars are more expensive, and the rubber bumper later 1500s that had the Triumph Spitfire engine in, they tend to be a little bit cheaper. But one thing you should know is that the Austin Healey Sprite and the MG Midget were both built in the same factory. So don't go shelling out extra cash for the Austin Healey unless you're one of those people that wants the badge. First off, we're going to start with the bodywork. Why? Well, because mechanical parts for these cars are generally readily available, but bodywork on these things is extremely expensive and a pain in the arse to fix. Want to know the MG Midget's biggest enemy? It comes from up there. Water. Anywhere that water can trickle and creep its way in and sit and rot, oh, it will. So let's go around those key points and see where the rust offenders are. First thing to check are the panel gaps. You do not want a bent car. You can see with Margot here, although there's the odd chip and things, it's okay until we meet the bottom. And that door is slightly proud of that rear wheel arch. So that can be a problem. Also, look how it's wider at the bottom here and narrower here. And you can tell from the way the door's been rubbing on the hinge here. All these things are fixable. Check that the door opens and closes properly. This one needs a little bit of force to do it. They all need that to a certain degree, but one that is hanging or doesn't close easily is something to be wary of. Be wary of these kick plates. They can hide a multitude of sins. A-post here. Look at the bottom on the inside. You can see there's already been some corrosion there. These can rot away like mad, and if you're seeing it at the surface, there's bound to be more underneath. We want to look in the arches. These rear haunches can really rust through from the inside, but you can start to see here there's rippling. Looking at the front wheel arch, here's a handy little tip. These have this lip that you can see, essentially acting like a scoop on a digger. They literally hold dirt in there. And what you want to make sure is there's a hole. You can almost just see my finger poking there. There's a hole that lets the water drain out. But these are hot spots for corrosion. Another point we want to check is the sills. This is actually a jacking point on the car, believe it or not. I don't recommend you use it, but open that puppy up and look for corrosion in there. This is a good sign that the rest of the sill is completely rotted and quite an important and expensive part of the car to fix. Another place to check is the bonnet. Now, it might look good at first glance, but if you look where it meets this lip here, water can get caught in it, and you can already see there's starting to be a little bit of rippling there. So keep an eye out on that. As soon as water gets in there, this whole thing can start to rot. One common area of corrosion on these cars is where the battery is. And you can just see inside the engine bay some actual holes in the scuttle, as it were, the firewall. One of the other areas to check on the Midget is the panel gaps on the boot. This should be sitting nice and flush, and it is there. My goodness, it's not here. I can get almost my whole fingers under that. So what you're looking for with the hood is to be checking for any holes and seams. These things have a habit of tearing. Look for pinch points where it might be in the roof where it's been folded down. That can let water in. Look for any holes or these panels going slightly opaque. Also, check around where these 10X fasteners go on. Sometimes they can tear and leave holes and you'll have some missing. An example is like this, where this one tore off and I've had to rather crudely sew in a piece of faux leather so I could still have a fastener there. Signs of a tired hood are things like this. This has been pinched somewhere or other and I've ended up having to super glue on a bit of roof rather than buy a new one for now. So when you're inside the car and you're looking inside at the hood, things to look for are the fasteners. There should be fasteners that clip round here. You want to look to make sure that there is a popper that fastens on here. Sometimes these go missing. And importantly, this seal that runs along here needs to be nice and tight, not to let any water in. And this operates down like that and refastens like that. And so it should feel nice and snug. You can see here, this one, the popper's come off. There's a nice hole there. Hello, water. The first thing I would actually check is see whether the owner had taken time to get the car MOT'd. And I know, because of the age of the cars, now they don't technically need an MOT. But what does that matter? Frankly, when buying a car, you want to know if it is safe to drive and whether anything has been flagged on the advisories. Let's work with the engine front to back, starting with the coolant. Now, if it was me, I would check the expansion tank first, unscrew the lid. In there, it should be half full of coolant. If it's not and it's empty, then there's a chance that the rest of the cooling system has sort of taken it and there might be a problem with the cooling system. So I would check the coolant first in there. Moving with the cooling system, check all the hoses are well attached and are in good condition. That's talking from the radiator to the thermostat and from the water pump down back to the return from the radiator as well. Also, whilst we're talking hoses, obviously the fuel's changed, the standard fuel in the UK now, our hoses need to be in good condition. So check on your fuel intake to the carbs and down into the engine here. The classic, check your oil filler cap. You don't want that to be cloudy or milky with residue in any way. That needs to be nice and clean. If it is cloudy or milky, there's a chance that your gasket has blown. So to be mindful of. While we're checking this way, one thing I didn't check with Margot was the thermostat and the heater valve gaskets. Now, it's just a case of looking at it, really. But when I bought mine, there was corrosion and bubbling up and gunk all round where the thermostat was and where the heater valve was. I have since replaced both. So something to check to make sure that actually the coolant is flowing properly and hasn't got any leaks, basically. Obviously, what you should always check, if I can get my fingers in there, it's me. It's a dipstick. Always remember to check your dipsticks. You want your oil between the minimum and the maximum and not a horrible colour, but a nice clear colour. Otherwise, it's time to change your oil and that might be a sign of wear from the previous user. You can check the fan belt tension if you want. A little bit of play between the fan and the dynamo is fine, but you're looking more for about ½ an inch of wiggle room between the crankshaft pulley and the dynamo. One thing you can check is the brake and clutch reservoirs that exist here up by the master cylinders. Check for leaks or anything like that and check for levels as well. They should both be filled up just to the lip of the thread. The other thing you can do is if you can get underneath the car, look at the suspension mounting points, specifically on the rear, where the leaf springs meet the body of the car. Those are known rust points. Check the condition of the anti-roll bar and the front springs and the subframes. Excessive corrosion in those areas, especially on the springs, can be MOT failures and obviously unsafe as well. Now the roof's down, we can move around a bit. First thing to check, look at your seats. Make sure there's no cuts in the fabric, no tears, that they're in good nick. Looking good here. Something that might have been fitted on your car, if someone had made the effort, is inertia seat belts. Otherwise, they came with a 3-point harness that was static, or sometimes just a lap belt. Also, one thing to look for is down here, these seats are on runners. these runners that bolt from under the car can corrode and rust away. So you might find there's a bit of seat wobble moving backwards and forwards. Make sure your window winders work and that the window goes down and up properly. That's a good start. The parcel shelf down here was an optional extra. I've added it in because I fancy a mint every now and again. A good thing to look for is the condition of the actual crackle finish on the dashboard. This had all rusted, and so I actually ended up taking it somewhere to have everyone take everything out, spray it, and reinstall it. And it looks terrific now, but it is a couple £100, so watch out for that. Now let's take a look at all the dials and their functions and how they work. This will vary on model to model. In this 72 round wheel arch, this light should turn the instrument lights on and off. It doesn't. It's been reworked to operate the fan. Useful in those colder days. Obviously, the next one along is the fuel gauge. This, as the ignition on, went tick, 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 tick. And now look, you can see the fuel gauge is working because I just put in half a tank of fuel. Wipers, these are a funny one. Can be 1 or 2 speed. I think largely they're 1 speed. These are 1 speed. Moving along next to the dual gauge here, the oil pressure and water temperature. When the car is running, you want the oil pressure to be between 40 and 60 PSI, something like that. And the water temperature should be around the normal. On hotter days, you'll find it nudging the hot. But if your coolant is working as it should, this shouldn't really get into the super hot zone at all. Next you want to check is your lights. Switch it once, that becomes your side lights at the front. Next is dipped, and obviously on your stalk, if you push it forward, that will become high beam, and this will light up blue. No fuel injection on this car. This has got a choke. Usual operations apply. This, on this car, is to operate your windscreen wiper washer fluid, and this is your heater. Make sure that all of these are working. The obvious ones apply. Make sure your rev counter is working. Make sure your speedometer is working as well. Obviously, before buying, you're going to want to test drive the thing. So let's do that. Now, a few things to note first of all. This has no fuel injection. Carburetors, my dear. So if it's from cold, you might need a little bit of choke. She's been running, so she should be okay. When starting up, you don't want any smoke out the back. Blue smoke is a big no-no. Excessive white smoke is also a big no-no, so look for those. And also check once you've moved the car away from where it's been standing that there's no pools of anything nasty underneath. Oil, clutch, brake fluid, that kind of thing. Big no-nos to look out for. So, ignition on. Make sure your fuel pump is working properly. Let's start her up, make sure there's no smoke. So do a couple of revs, make sure once she's warmed up, there's no excessive smoke. What you're looking for on the PSI, between 60 and 80 is absolutely perfect. And then once the car's mellowed down and warmed up, the oil pressure should, I mean, mine runs at 40. Take from that what you will. Reverse is an absolute pig. It's all the way over and down, but when you do it the first time, you accidentally select fourth. So you have to really go for it. Oh. So let's take it for a drive. Okay. Engaging thrusters. Gear changes should be smooth, not too difficult to engage. There is a bit of whine on first gear. Don't forget, these are straight cut gears. So there's no synchro mesh on first gear. So when you're approaching a junction, like I am now, don't go into first gear from here. Wait until you're at a standstill, then select first. Otherwise, you get a horrible crunching sound. The brakes on these are discs up front and drums on the rear, which you'd think might not be that good, but on a car that weighs the same as a Cornish pasty, it's more than adequate. It will squeak and rattle a little bit. Obviously, the car is old. This girl in particular is 50. Now, I think when I'm 50, I'm going to start squeaking and rattling a little bit, and the same applies to the car. What we're looking for are big clonking noises from the suspension, odd feel in the handling, squeals from the fan belt, knocking noises from the differential, rumbling from the engine bearings. We don't want any of that stuff. It is still meant to feel fairly smooth. There's a tiny bit of roll, but because this car is so small and low, you can throw it into corners and feel pretty confident. Be conscious of smells as well. I mean, they do smell old, obviously, but you shouldn't have excessive fuel smell. That could be something dodgy around the carbs, with the fuel pump, or even as simple as an exhaust leak. Down into third, hook it round, open the taps. Oh, the joy. Ultimately, if all the things you've looked at and your gut tell you it's a good car, you can't really go wrong for 4 or 5 grand, can you? Down to cost. These cars' values vary hugely. You could spend £500 on a restoration if you were willing to do the work. You could spend 15 grand on an early Austin Healey Sprite with perfect bodywork. It really is that varied. If you're like me and you want one that isn't for taking to a museum, then you can spend 5 or 6 grand. There'll be some cosmetic issues, there'll be some rust in places, but the car will be roadworthy and there'll be things you can do on it yourself to keep her running nice. Ugh, I'm exhausted. Right, that's all you're getting from me. I hope this guide has proved useful for you, and I wish you the very best of luck buying your Midget. If you've got any further useful comments, things I might have missed, drop them in those comments below. And if you're feeling super generous, then feel free to hit that subscribe button down in that bottom corner. But until the next time, take care, lots of love.